with a beaming smile.
Lisa was always a real pretty girl, always sort of the center of attention.
Her husband was a high school jock who'd scored big in the insurance business.
They was like Ken and Barbie almost.
But their sunny exterior masked a marriage in turmoil.
She had mentioned that she might want a divorce. I tried to discourage it.
And what had started as a storybook romance would end with a terrifying twist.
Next thing I remember is some guy trying to cut my throat.
When the attacker's identity was revealed, so were the secrets lurking beneath the Whedbee's perfect facade. A jury would ultimately have to decide who was really the victim and who was the villain.
She was physically abused by her husband.
A.m. when insurance salesman Rob Whedbee stirred in the bedroom of his suburban home. He had woken up to the smell of something most homeowners instinctively dread: smoke.
I was starting to wake up, and about the time, I was barely in that conscious state.
However, it wasn't the smoke of a house fire that woke Rob Whedbee. It was cigarette smoke, something that puzzled him.
There were no smokers in the house.
But when Rob opened his eyes, he saw a figure approaching the bed, silhouetted by the streetlight outside the window.
He saw an image of what he thought was a man.
And then I caught a silhouette of like an arm.
Not only was a man in his bedroom, but the man was holding a knife.
He had one foot on the ground and he had one knee on the bed, straddling me, preparing to stab me or cut my throat.
In an instant, Rob Whedbee was wide awake.
He immediately bolted out of the bed, started fighting this individual.
I just rolled and put an arm up, and he came down with the knife. And then the fight was on.
Rob got the worst of it at first.
I reached around and grabbed the knife and cut my artery or whatever that is under your thumb there, and a lot of blood at that point started flowing.
But after a few seconds of struggle, Rob and his assailant were at an impasse.
Eventually I was able to get his left wrist in my left hand and his right wrist in my right hand.
Then, as Rob and his assailant fought for the knife, Rob's wife Lisa appeared in the bedroom doorway with a baseball bat. And Rob figured his rescue was at hand.
He started trying to tell her to, hit this individual.
But Lisa hung back, even as Rob shouted for help.
She just stood there, and I'm hollering at the top of my lungs.
And that's when a strange thing happened. The man with the knife started yelling too.
He just yells at her. He says, "You got to do it, and you've got to do it now."
Lisa Outlaw met Rob Whedbee one night in 1979 when he and a buddy were out cruising in Rob's Corvette.
Just boys will do, they're that age. We had pulled up beside a car at a red light. There was a little banter back and forth and what have you.
Most of Rob's banter was directed at Lisa, the pretty 17-year-old in the passenger seat.
Lisa was always a real pretty girl, very attractive, track star, always sort of the center of attention.
She was very outgoing and just, would strike up a conversation very easily.
We ended up in a parking lot a little ways up the road, and we were just sitting there talking a little while,
After talking for a while in the parking lot, Rob asked Lisa out. She readily accepted, clearly smitten by the former high school football player turned college freshman.
He was very into sports. He was the bodybuilder, and she was the blonde-haired, very attractive girl. So it seemed like a very perfect match. It was like Ken and Barbie almost.
The couple dated for 2 years.
We went out to eat, went to movies. We'd go up to the mountains and did a lot of boating, water skiing, that kind of thing.
After Lisa graduated high school, the couple married in 1982. Soon after, Rob dropped out of college and went to work in his father's insurance agency.
We've had our own agency for about 50 years. Rob and his brother both are in the agency with us.
Lisa also joined the family business as an office assistant.
She came over to our office to work, do some filing and, little secretarial work and such.
She worked there for just a little while and then decided, we're going to have children, she'd stay home.
Lisa and Rob soon bought their dream home in a quiet subdivision called Camelot. And they'd barely settled in before Lisa was pregnant.
They were settling down, bought their dream home, and everything seemed like it was really perfect.
In April of 1986, she gave birth to a son, Justin.
Justin was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very, handsome, healthy child, and it really, I think, accentuated their relationship.
Rob was thrilled, looking ahead to things like Little League and father-son fishing trips.
He was a guy's guy. We played softball together for a number of years.
Even with the new baby, his growing insurance business, and a busy softball schedule, Rob also managed to find time for Lisa.
They would go out on the lake and ski and whatnot.
Sometimes Lisa and Rob would even slip off for a romantic weekend alone at their vacation condo in the Smoky Mountains.
You always hope that your child marries someone that they can, make a happy life with. And they were happy for several years.
After 8 years of marriage, Lisa and Rob's relationship would hit a turning point after the birth of the couple's daughter, Brittany, in 1990. According to Rob, the change started shortly after Brittany's birth in the maternity ward.
A doctor came in. He was extremely nervous. You could tell he looked like he was going to his execution.
The doctor informed the Whedbees that Brittany had been born with Down syndrome. According to Rob, Lisa took the news hard.
She just completely broke down. She couldn't really even talk to him. She was just beside herself, which, I understand.
Brittany was also diagnosed with a heart defect.
The open heart surgeries at a young age, never really knowing if Brittany was going to make it or not. It was a real strain.
Brittany survived the surgeries, and despite all her medical problems, grew into a happy, loving child, her daddy's little girl.
He was just so proud of her and always, would have her at forefront and really made a point of showing her off to everyone.
Anyone who would take the time to get to know Brittany would understand that. She's a pistol.
Lisa seemed to have a harder time dealing with the emotional ups and downs that accompanied Brittany's surgeries. And according to Rob, she never quite adjusted to the day-to-day stress of being a stay-at-home mom to a child with special needs.
Something like that sometimes, as they say, it can make you or break you, and I think it broke her.
Her demeanor did change and did become different. She became a little withdrawn and a little sullen. There was definitely a period of time where her demeanor started to drop.
The extended family did what they could to help.
The grandparents were involved, so we just tried to take some of the pressure, off of her if we could. And
Her mother kept Brittany a whole lot, and I kept Justin.
Rob also tried to pitch in more at home.
I tried to come home, as early as I could and not, go out as much and didn't play as much softball.
But despite Rob's effort, it was clear that he and Lisa weren't the happy couple they'd been before.
I mean, there certainly were indications that Brittany and her birth had created a lot of pressures on their relationship, as naturally it would.
There were no more trips to the lake, no more romantic weekends in the mountains.
Lisa's struggles to be as good a parent as she could conceivably be for that young child had taken its toll.
Whether it was exhaustion or depression, over the next few months it became clear to Rob that Lisa was becoming more distant. Then one day in the spring of 1993, she brought up the possibility of getting a divorce.
I tried to discourage it. I told her, the children would be better off in a two-parent family.
For the time being, Lisa agreed to tough it out. The couple sought counseling at their church.
We talked to the preacher a few times. She would do better for a while and put on a front that, she was extremely happy.
And while the Whedbees had never been very active at Trinity Methodist, once her marriage was in trouble, Lisa started taking a more active role.
I saw Lisa much more. Rob came, Christmas, Easter, things like that.
In 1993, Lisa even signed up for the church choir. It was through the choir that Lisa first got to know a man named Michael Frazier.
He was our choir director at the church for about 10 years. He's an excellent organist, lived and breathed music.
In addition to his part-time job directing the choir, Michael was also a reporter for a local newspaper.
He was very quiet, always a little reserved, but then when he was ready to add in, he'd always have some little sarcastic remark or quirky thing to say about something.
Quirky pretty much described the chain-smoking choir director / newspaper reporter's personality.
He was kind of strange.
He was a very odd kind of fella. When he played it, he had that Phantom of the Opera kind of thing going on. He'd big flourishes on the organ and big, loud, bombastic pieces.
Michael's bombastic style was a big hit with most of the congregation, but it didn't make much of an impression on Lisa's husband.
I never really thought a whole lot about him. We didn't really run in the same circles. You know, he didn't play ball and I didn't play the organ.
Instead, it was Michael's day job as a reporter that first brought him to Rob's attention.
Mother's Day in '93, Michael had written a story about the Whedbees, specifically Lisa, raising Brittany.
Lisa and Michael were both quite proud of the story. When it came out, they made sure all their friends at church knew about it.
They told everybody to read it. They'd held it up. It was up on bulletin boards. Everybody talked about it.
Although when Rob read the article, he had a hard time reconciling the Lisa he knew with the woman Frazier described.
How devoted she was and caring and all these things. And I don't think my name was even mentioned in that story.
At first, Rob didn't make much of it.
I knew they were friends from the choir, and you know, sometimes you make your friends look good if you can. So I thought, well, that's okay. No harm done.
But it wasn't long before Rob noticed just how much time Lisa was spending at choir practice.
Choir practice might last till 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and she may come home at 11.
Was it possible that Lisa was having an affair with Michael Frazier?
He's not, I think the good wording for it, he's not a handsome person as far as being attractive to women that you would look at that way.
You look at him and you think this is a guy who's a kind of a non-threatening guy. He's got glasses, he's thin, he's got curly hair. He was the choir director.
Once again, Rob decided to shrug it off.
I never really pressed her. It just would create a problem.
But there were about to be problems in the Whedbee household, and they would start with an intruder in the dark of night. Coming up, Lisa shows up just as the intruder attacks Rob.
His wife appeared and had a ball bat.
I thought at that point, hey, all right, she's gonna help me here.
But whom will she try and save? By June of 1994, after 12 years of marriage, Lisa Whedbee's husband Rob had begun to suspect his wife might be having an affair with their church's part-time choir director, a newspaper reporter named Michael Frazier. Not only
I'm left out, and you know, she's Mother of the Year. It was odd.
But the real shock came in the early morning hours of June 8th, when Rob awoke to the smell of cigarette smoke.
I guess the thing that really caused me to wake up is I never could really understand that smell. Not necessarily smoke, but you know, the smell of someone who smokes, if you know what I mean.
But it all became clear moments later when Rob found himself in a life or death struggle with a knife-wielding intruder.
Next thing I remember is some guy, you know, on top of me with a butcher knife, trying to basically, I guess, cut my throat.
As he struggled to fight off his attacker, Rob started yelling for Lisa, who wasn't in the bedroom.
He started calling for his wife. His wife appeared and had a ball bat.
I thought at that point, hey, all right, she's gonna help me here.
But when Rob shouted for Lisa to hit the intruder with the bat, a strange thing happened.
She just stood there. I'm just freaking out. I'm thinking, what in the world is going on?
Stranger still, Rob's attacker started yelling at Lisa too, and he was telling her to hit Rob.
He started yelling at her, "You've got to do it, and you've got to do it now."
As soon as he yelled, Rob realized who his knife-wielding, chain-smoking attacker was.
I recognized his voice. I thought, hell, that's Michael Frazier.
Figuring it was 2 against 1, Rob decided his only chance was to escape.
So I just stood up and picked him up over my head and slammed him into the corner by the nightstand and took off out of the room. And as I went past Lisa, I took the baseball bat away from her.
Rob ran down the hallway with Michael in hot pursuit, but the chase stopped once Rob reached the garage.
I squared off in the middle of the garage. I had the bat. He came out into the light, and he had that knife in his hand. Rubber gloves on, stocking mask, a black T-shirt.
Not just any T-shirt either.
Michael's wearing this Phantom of the Opera T-shirt. You know, it was all just kind of a goofy thing.
Rob Whedbee wasn't laughing, though.
Frankly, I was going to take that bat to it, be honest with you.
But the diminutive choir director took one look at Rob with the bat in his hand and called it quits.
He just went straight back in the house and shut that door and locked it.
Rob pounded on the door, but it didn't budge. So still enraged about the attempt on his life, Rob went outside and circled the house, beating on the gutters with the baseball bat.
It was actually a neighbor at first that heard the commotion.
I didn't really know that he'd heard it, but apparently he did, because when I got back up to the driveway, then he was coming down.
The neighbor found Rob covered in blood, walking around in his underwear.
I started telling him what was going on, and he just couldn't believe it. His face just fell, because he went to that same church, and he knew Michael too. And he just couldn't believe it. He said, "Who?" Michael Frazier? And he was like, "Are you sure?"
Stunned by the news that their choir director had just tried to kill Rob, the neighbor volunteered to call 911.
He actually hollered back up to his house, to the bedroom window, and his wife called the police.
No, what's your emergency?
There was a prowler or a burglar in the house, and our neighbor was screaming, and my husband's over trying to help him.
Okay, we get someone else. We got someone on the way.
When the first call came in, they didn't know exactly what it was. They just knew there was some sort of a disturbance.
While sheriff's deputies were on their way, Lisa came out of the house and approached her husband in the driveway.
She was trying to play, I don't know what happened, what was going on, She acted like she didn't even know who it was.
But Rob had been in the bedroom. He'd heard Frazier asking for Lisa's help.
I just basically told her, "I know that's a bunch of crap. You don't even try to sell me that."
Silently, Lisa turned and went back into the house, shortly before the first patrol car pulled onto the Whedbee street.
When the officers first arrived, it was just a disturbance call. They didn't know what type it was. They didn't know if it was domestic violence. They didn't know if it was two individuals just arguing or people intoxicated. They didn't know what it was.
Rob quickly informed the deputies that an intruder had attacked him. But when they entered the house, Michael Frazier had already slipped out the back door and into the woods behind the Whedbee home.
At that time, we had canines down there, and we're trying to find him.
It was no use. He was long gone.
He must have had a car somewhere parked in the neighborhood or something.
However, Frazier's alleged accomplice was still in the house, if what Rob told the authorities was true.
He said, she's in on this.
According to what Rob told the deputies, Lisa had been unusually attentive when he came home after playing softball that night.
She was being very interested in me and, what was going on and how was your day and did you win, just very friendly.
Their son Justin had spent the night with his grandparents, and their daughter Brittany was already asleep.
Lisa had already put her in bed, and generally she would wait for me to put Brittany in bed.
Rob told the investigators he had eaten a late dinner of leftovers, and a little after 10, sat down to catch up on some paperwork. But he'd barely started when Lisa walked into the room.
She came in a little, nightie and whatever, asked me how it was going, brought me something to drink, I think, and just real friendly, and said, "Are you gonna, work all night?"
Rob said he had followed his wife to the bedroom, and a few hours later had been rudely awakened by a man with a knife, a man his wife apparently knew.
He said she was talking to this person that was trying to stab me and trying to kill me.
They were communicating. He was telling her, "I'm not getting this done. It's your turn. You need to help me here."
Once filled in by Rob, Knox County Sheriff's investigators went in the house and questioned Lisa.
They were interrogating her in the den. They wouldn't let me close enough to hear it, but they were trying to find out, who was telling the truth.
Lisa's answer struck the investigators as evasive, even suspicious.
She just acted kind of strange. She didn't seem that concerned about her husband.
After a few minutes of questioning, deputies escorted Lisa out of the house. Placed in the back of the patrol car and read her rights, she suddenly turned talkative. Lisa still denied being in on the attempt on Rob's life, but she did confirm the identity of her husband's attacker.
That's when we learned about Michael Frazier, who the individual was.
Within minutes, deputies were on their way to Michael's address.
I sent a team over to stake out that townhouse. Next thing you know, you got a dude showing up with a Phantom of the Opera shirt.
Like Lisa, Frazier was taken into custody without incident. As they were transported to the Knox County Jail, investigators searched the Whedbee house. And it wasn't long before they found evidence of where Michael had apparently hidden, waiting until Rob was asleep.
Somebody had been in the closet because there were some blankets and a sleeping bag or something.
There were no signs of forced entry, however.
Obviously, he had gotten in the house with Lisa's assistance.
Questioned that night by sheriff's investigators, Frazier admitted to his affair with Lisa. He also confessed to being the hitman in a murder plot.
It became very clear what had happened that night. I didn't realize at the time, I don't think many people did, that it was going on for months and months prior to that. I thought it might have been, just an impassioned event occurring over one night, but obviously that was not the case.
That night, Lisa and Michael were both booked on attempted murder charges. Lisa was also charged with solicitation to commit murder.
Solicitation to commit first-degree murder, very serious offense, carries many years to serve.
Coming up, Rob files for divorce.
Rob Whedbee was very upset, and rightfully so.
And Lisa goes on the offensive.
Lisa informed me of physical abuse by Mr. Whedbee.
By the dawn of June 8, 1994, 31-year-old Lisa Whedbee was sitting in a Knoxville, Tennessee jail. The mother of two had just been charged with the attempted murder of her husband, Rob, a 33-year-old insurance salesman.
I still have very vivid memory of her in custody behind the glass and racked with tears and just destroyed by what had occurred.
Hours earlier, Rob Whedbee had been violently attacked in the couple's bedroom.
He was sound asleep, but he ultimately woke up because he smelled cigarette smoke in his room.
Had identified as Michael Frazier, the choir director at the Whedbee's church.
He's not somebody that you think is going to lie in wait in a man's house, wait for the man to go to sleep, and then spring after him with a knife while he's sleeping in bed.
But according to Rob, that was precisely what Frazier had done during their desperate battle over the knife.
He was struggling trying to get the knife free and trying to stick me, in the leg or wherever he could to get me, to let go.
That morning, while Lisa and Frazier were booked for attempted murder, Rob was on his way to the hospital to get stitched up.
He cut my hand and he cut my arm in a few places.
During the drive, Rob called his parents and let them know what had happened.
Rob told his dad, he said, Lisa and Michael Frazier just tried to kill me.
Rob's mom had suspected there was trouble in her son's marriage, but she had never expected this.
Honestly, it just about floored us. It was unbelievable. It was just, that happens to somebody else.
By 6 o'clock that evening, the attack was all over the local news.
Lisa Whedbee and Michael Frazier were jailed for allegedly trying to kill Lisa's husband while he was sleeping.
At Trinity Methodist, where Lisa sang in the choir that Frazier directed, the congregation was shocked by the news.
It was painful. Here are two people that they considered part of their church family, and no one could understand. How could this happen?
It still baffles me that someone could, that people do even today, conspire to do something as horrible as that.
The thought that Lisa was having an affair with Frazier left some members of the congregation scratching their heads, too.
She could go out being an attractive girl and get basically anybody she wanted. So we were both shocked. Why would she cheat with someone like this?
Everybody thought, are you kidding me?
With its church angle, an unlikely love triangle, and the bumbling assassination attempt, the story was all but tailor-made for the tabloids.
This is a case that from its outset had gotten national attention.
It was in People magazine, it was on Dateline, it was all over the news, it was on the national news, cable networks, it was all over the place.
CNN and Primetime and Hard Copy and all those kinds of shows we got faxes from all sorts of folks wanting to interview Lisa.
But Lisa, released on $50,000 bond, avoided the cameras.
She was sort of the mystery woman in all of this. She stayed low-key, and you didn't really know a whole lot about her.
Rob Whedbee wasn't about to keep quiet, however. The day after the attack, he did something he had earlier argued against: file for divorce.
Rob Whedbee was very upset, and rightfully so, that his wife was having an affair, and then someone tried to kill him in his own bed.
Lisa, despite her earlier desire to end the marriage, contested the proceedings.
She, was resisting that. They were trying to put off the divorce pending the criminal trial, and I was trying to push the divorce forward.
Thanks to Lisa's recent arrest on attempted murder charges, Rob was able to obtain temporary custody of the couple's 2 children, 4-year-old Brittany and 8-year-old Justin.
Rob and children stayed at our house about 3 weeks. Justin would not go back in the house. Rob had to have a security system put in the house before Justin would go back home, and he really didn't want to go back then.
Lisa couldn't even go back. Rob had also obtained a temporary restraining order, barring her from the family's Knoxville home.
The judge in the divorce case granted her temporary use of a condominium that we owned together in Gatlinburg, and that's where she lived.
Awaiting trial, Lisa tried to go on with her life.
She had a job at the Dixie Stampede in Pigeon Forge, sold tickets or something. I don't really know exactly what all she was doing. I just left her alone, to be honest with you.
She wasn't alone, however. Awaiting trial, Lisa continued her affair with Michael Frazier. Also out on $50,000 bond, the former choir director was a frequent visitor to Lisa's condo, once a romantic getaway for her and Rob.
She was under specific direction from the judge that he was not to be there. And sure enough, he was there.
It continued for a period of, at least to some extent, for a period of months after that. In fact, some of that was publicized.
There was video footage of Lisa and Michael rendezvousing at different places as this trial was getting ready to start.
Rob's divorce attorney filed a flurry of motions challenging Lisa's continued use of the condo. But when those efforts failed, Rob upped the ante. In June of 1995, with her criminal case still pending, Rob filed a civil suit against Lisa, seeking $1.5 million in damages. Lisa fought back, however. In July, she filed an answer to Rob's civil suit, arguing that if anyone was owed damages after the couple's 12-year marriage, it was Lisa.
Lisa informed me of a physical abuse by Mr. Whedbee.
According to her attorney, he was going on more than just Lisa's word.
Witnesses had seen evidence of that abuse in terms of bruising.
Lisa also claimed that when she had sought a divorce, Rob had done more than just talk her out of it.
Lisa Whedbee actually claimed that Mr. Whedbee was abusive to her physically and that he had also been extremely threatening to her.
He had even gone to the offices of Lisa's divorce attorney and allegedly made threats there, too.
Mr. Whedbee walked into the office and ultimately had to be told that if he did not leave, they would call 911.
Lisa's estranged husband angrily denied the accusations, arguing that they were all about diverting attention from her pending criminal case.
It was a whitewash. It was a smokescreen. It was, I don't know if I can say it or not, but it was bull.
Coming up, Michael Frazier stands trial for attempted murder.
They felt all along that they had a strong case.
But will Lisa's allegations of abuse make for an equally strong defense?
The choir director, the preacher's kid, decided he was going to take on the monster.
When Lisa Whedbee had first approached her husband about a divorce in 1993, he'd argued against it. But then, early on the morning of June 8, 1994, Rob awoke to his wife's alleged lover, Michael Frazier, at the foot of the bed, wielding a butcher knife.
None of us saw that coming, and least of all Rob, because he would not have stayed in the house or anywhere near a woman that was planning on killing him.
Rob survived the attack, and now with his divorce pending, Rob was focused on making sure his estranged wife and her lover paid for the crime.
Criminal prosecutions are largely victim-driven, and in this case, the victim was driving straight ahead.
Michael Frazier's trial was first, although considering the victim had identified him at the scene, It appeared prosecutors figured his conviction would be merely a formality.
They felt all along that they had a strong case. I don't think anyone was concerned on.
Scheduled for June 24th, 1996.
Lisa might as well have been in the court as much as she was talked about. She was extremely important.
In their opening statements, prosecutors argued that the attempt on Rob's life was the result of meticulous planning on the part of Lisa and Michael.
I didn't realize at the time, I don't think many people did, the scope of the conspiracy.
Incredibly, in its open, the defense admitted that Michael Frazier had been the one wielding the knife in the Whedbee's bedroom.
And he went there with the intention of killing Rob Whedbee.
But he had gone in there with a legitimate reason to do it, according to the defense.
Lisa apparently told Michael that she was extremely unhappy, that she was with a man who was being abusive to her, that Rob may have sexually assaulted her.
She was physically abused by her husband. And he told her the only way she would leave that house would be in a body bag.
The defense tactic, of course, was to villainize the victim.
Rob's family knew it was coming, but that was little consolation as they sat and listened in the courtroom.
That was pretty hard to just sit. Well, his dad could sit back and take it easier than I could, but we did what the lawyers asked us to do.
Meanwhile, Rob Whedbee sat outside the courtroom, his anger and frustration building as he waited for his turn to testify.
It's a hard thing to have your name slandered every day.
And when Rob Whedbee walked into the courtroom on September 14th to take the stand for the prosecution, it was all he could do to keep his outrage from boiling over.
Rob Whedbee in the courtroom was a very stern, angry individual. He was dressed in black with a very red, blood-like shirt with a black tie. Everything about him sent a message of sternness.
He just looked like somebody you weren't going to give a lot of sympathy to.
Questioned by prosecutors, Rob bitterly described how his wife had stood aside, doing nothing during the attack.
I told her there was a man in the house attacking me with a knife and for her to call the police and turn on the light.
And Rob Whedbee, as he made clear to the jurors, had no trouble identifying the man who'd been in his bedroom with a knife.
It's Michael Frazier, the man right there.
When it came time to present his case, Michael's attorney picked up where he had left off, hammering on the alleged abuse Lisa had suffered.
Every time he saw her shake and tremor, every time he heard her cry, that he felt the pain that Lisa Whedbee was feeling at the hand of her husband, Rob.
He laid it on pretty heavy as far as I was the bad guy. I beat her and abused her and never helped her with the children. And I beat the kids too.
According to his attorney, Michael was so distressed by Lisa's long litany of abuse that he had felt he had no choice but to act.
The choir director, the preacher's kid, decided he was going to take on the monster.
It was the perfect setup for Michael Frazier's testimony. The would-be killer/choir director took the stand on September 15th.
It was important not only what Michael said, but to allow them to see this very diminutive, almost kind of dorky and in ways effeminate person.
He's not somebody that you think is going to lie in wait in a man's house, wait for the man to go to sleep, and then spring after him with a knife while he's sleeping in bed.
In his testimony, Michael admitted he'd been in the Whedbee's bedroom with a knife, but he also offered an explanation: the horrible abuse Lisa had supposedly suffered at her husband's hands.
I was going to do whatever I had to do to protect Lisa.
The jury looked at him and said, geez, this guy's not a monster.
The guy behind the organ was the same guy on the stand. Little odd, little strange.
The contrast with Lisa's husband couldn't have been clearer.
Rob came off as someone that appeared to be capable of what the jury was hearing.
There was one person the jury hadn't heard from, however. It was the woman whose tales of abuse were the backbone of Michael's defense.
She was extremely important to him. He needed her in the sense that his whole defense was based on the notion of, I'm doing this for her. I love this woman. What she's going through is terrible. She's in a terrible relationship, a rocky marriage. It comes down to, I must save her.
But would she testify in order to save Michael?
She didn't ever show up.
Because Lisa was awaiting her own trial, she wouldn't take the stand and give her account of Rob's alleged abuse. Instead, the defense closed its case by calling a forensic psychologist to testify about Michael and Lisa's intense year-long relationship leading up to the attack.
The psychologist offered a snapshot into what he was thinking and was able to open up the fact that Lisa had confided in Michael that she was being abused.
But was what Lisa had told Michael true? According to the prosecution's close, it was simply a skillful setup.
The prosecution felt that this attractive female had manipulated the naive Michael Frazier into trying to bump off Rob Whedbee.
Prosecutors also claimed that Lisa's looks had made it easy for her to manipulate the hapless choir director.
She let him bat out of his league. Lisa wouldn't have given Michael Frazier the time of day unless he was going to do something that she needed done.
On September 16, 1995, the jury found Michael Frazier guilty, but not of attempted murder. They convicted Frazier of the lesser charge of attempted manslaughter, punishable by a maximum of only 4 years in prison.
They reached the verdict that they did because they ultimately viewed this as a pretty hapless sort of effort.
So there's a little bit of a sort of a comedic side. Nobody really wanted to say that, but let's be honest. I mean, come on.
Rob Whedbee, however, didn't see the humor in being attacked in his own bed. Nor was he amused that the man who attacked him almost got away with it.
It contradicts itself. By the nature of manslaughter, that means there was no intent. What he did was attempted first-degree murder.
Apparently, the judge agreed with Rob's assessment.
Judge Baumgartner, he almost had a stroke.
Whether everyone agrees with or doesn't agree with their verdict, we're very... The only word that comes to mind is kind to you.
The judge sentenced Frazier to the full 4 years.
He gave Frazier the maximum amount of sentencing that could be given out under the guidelines.
Coming up, Lisa finally has her day in court.
Today, Lisa Whedbee begins the road towards the end of this terrible chapter in her life.
But at what cost?
That's a huge price to pay, and she's paid it.
All eyes were on Lisa Whedbee when she strolled into the Knox County Courthouse on June 24, 1996. She was charged with solicitation of murder in connection to the June 1994 attack on Rob Whedbee, her former husband. In the 2 years since the attack, Rob had divorced Lisa, while her alleged accomplice, Michael Frazier, had been found guilty of attempted manslaughter for his role in the attack.
He didn't get what he deserved. I knew that that was a really bad sign about what would happen to her.
Lisa's attorney wasn't so sure, however.
There was some risk that the outcome of her trial would be far different than the outcome of Michael Frazier's trial.
While the jury had taken pity on Frazier, they might view Lisa less favorably.
Lisa's a very attractive woman. There was at least the potential for some risk that the jury would conclude that somehow she had utilized Mr. Frazier as a tool or a pawn.
Rather than stand trial, Lisa decided to take a plea deal. She had come to court that morning to enter what's known as an Alford plea.
That a plea in which a defendant never admits guilt, but
rarely make it justice.
Depends. If she was just a bystander, then, a year seems appropriate. But if she really helped plan the whole thing, then she probably needed to do more time.
More time was definitely the opinion of her ex-husband, the man who woke 2 years earlier to find Lisa and her lover armed with a baseball bat and a knife.
Neither one of them got what they deserved. That's a fact.
Ironically, Rob Whedbee also feels that Frazier's inability to follow through on the murder attempt may have saved his own life.
I think that she was waiting on him to kill me, and then she was going to kill him. And then she could tell the story however she wanted to tell it.
Released on June 20th, 1997, Lisa has remarried and built a new life in another state.
She's only been once or twice to see either of the children, which is, I think pretty much an indictment on her as a parent, because those were or are her children. And it seems she's made no attempt to be any part of their life.
Among the saddest of the chapters is the destruction of the relationship that she had, very positive relationship she had with her children. And that's a huge price to pay. And she's paid it, I'm afraid.
Misty and Quinn Witherspoon were the quintessential small-town couple.
Misty Witherspoon was the consummate mother.
If you look in the dictionary under family man, there should be a picture of Quinn.
But even the most picture-perfect family has its problems. Raising 3 kids on a cop's salary, for instance.
Police officers don't make a whole lot on duty. He did a lot of off-duty work.
It was just tough, and he was working a couple of extra jobs trying to pull in more money.
But the real struggle started on September 13th, 2005. That afternoon, Misty Witherspoon wasn't just the consummate mom.
The call came out that a police officer had been shot.
She was also a single one. And Misty herself would show investigators exactly how it happened. But was she telling the truth? 2005. It was around 2 o'clock on a quiet late summer afternoon at the modest suburban home of 32-year-old Misty Witherspoon and her husband Quinn.
They had a brick ranch house, they had a pool in the backyard, 3 kids, lived in a nice community that anyone would want to live in.
A police officer with the neighboring town of Concord, Quinn had worked a late shift the night before. He lay napping on the living room sofa while Misty moved quietly about the house, packing.
They were going on a family vacation the following day with Quinn's parents.
But the family's plans were about to be preempted. Misty's 911 call came into the Mooresville dispatch moments later at 10 minutes after 2.
Mooresville 911, what is your emergency? I was bringing my husband his gun and I tripped and fell with it and it's shot. It's shot? Yes.
Worse, the bullet had hit Misty's sleeping husband in the head.
Oh, God. Is he breathing or anything? No, it's bad.
Within minutes, an ambulance and Mooresville police were on the way, summoned by the news that a fellow officer was down.
I heard the call go out on the radio of an accidental shooting of an off-duty police officer.
Meanwhile, the dispatcher did her best to calm Misty down.
Oh, I don't believe this. Oh, God. Oh. Okay, ma'am, hang on just a second, okay? Oh, my heart's beating so fast.
Unfortunately, Quinn's heart had stopped beating well before the first patrolman arrived.
He knew that there was nothing that could be done. He had the EMTs check Mr. Witherspoon for signs of life. They found none.
All the patrolman could do at that point was secure the scene and wait for the detectives. He ordered everyone out of the house, including Misty. The newly widowed mother of 3 was out on the front lawn when investigator Todd Markham pulled up outside the house a few minutes later.
I saw Miss Witherspoon sitting on the ground outside the house. She was just sort of staring off into space. Just you could tell that she'd been crying.
Born in Mooresville in 1973, Misty Keller was small town to her core.
It's just a typical North Carolina girl, goes to church on Sunday and very friendly, almost overly friendly, always cheerful, just what you might think of if you thought of a Southern woman.
She first met Quinn Witherspoon when she was 17.
Misty was hanging out uptown in Mooresville, cruising, as kids do. And she met Quinn, and they started dating.
2 years older, Quinn was an old-school Southern gentleman.
He always tried to do what was right. He always looked out for others. I mean, he'd drop what he was doing then to go help others. He helped out his mom a lot, and I'd say, meet me at the church, I need to talk, or I need something done, and he was always there, always there. People loved him.
And Quinn had wanted to be in law enforcement as long as he could remember.
Ever since he was probably about 3 years old, he always wanted to be a policeman. Always. That's all he ever wanted to do.
Misty, on the other hand, drifted a bit.
Misty quit school when she was 17, got her GED after that.
Her relationship with Quinn followed a similar trajectory.
And they went through some stages where they weren't together, then they were back together.
Finally, after dating for 4 years, the couple married in 1994.
Then they got married and they actually lived here with Mom and Dad for a while.
Misty got a supervisor's job at a local factory, while Quinn finished his criminal justice degree at a nearby college. Graduating in 1995, Quinn took a job as a patrolman in the neighboring town of Concord, where he quickly became one of the most popular officers on the force.
He was a great guy, very low-key, not your typical gung-ho cop.
He was straightforward. I think he's the most honest cop that I think I've ever met.
With Quinn working, the couple was able to build a modest starter home on the edge of town. But while they'd moved out of his parents' place, the family stayed close.
Us Witherspoons are real close-knit, and we're always involved. You know, we always know what's going on with each other. Misty fell right into our family.
More than anything, being part of the Witherspoon family meant being a part of their church, Whitman Park Baptist.
This church was a big part of the Witherspoon family. They were leaders in the church. Most of the people in the church were related to the Witherspoons. And when Misty married into this family, she then became a part of this church family.
She was raised as Jehovah's Witness, and Quinn and her had a conversation when they started getting serious. And she had actually left the Jehovah's Witness program, and she started attending our church, and she loved it. She would fuss if one of us wasn't at church, you know. She'd want to know why we was laying out, you know, whatnot.
Misty wouldn't be the only Witherspoon joining Whitman Park Baptist, however. She and Quinn had a daughter in 1998, followed by twins in 2002.
Her kids always come first, but she was a very good mother. I mean, she was very attentive to her kids, and I mean, they were always clean. They was always dressed nice.
Putting the kids first didn't mean Misty neglected herself, however.
She always was made up nicely, always neatly dressed.
And she always made sure to set aside time for Quinn, too.
Quinn and Misty always had a date night. Always. Somebody kept the kids. They would go out to eat. They'd go see a movie. Sometimes they'd go out of town, you know, and stay at a motel.
The birth of the twins did change some things, however.
They decided that it would be better for her to stay at home with the kids.
At first, Quinn's promotion to canine officer appeared to make it possible.
Quinn Witherspoon had a good job. Misty was able to be a stay-at-home mom.
Unfortunately, the family wasn't all that was growing. Their bills were too. Around the same time Misty quit her job, she and Quinn bought a bigger house, a nice brick rancher with a pool out back in a very desirable part of town.
Homes that I'm going to guess were built sometime in the 50s to maybe 70s. It's right near the high school and the middle school and also some of the elementary schools.
It was also right next door to Misty's in-laws.
They were very close. The children got to see their grandparents all the time.
But the kids started seeing less of their father as he started working longer hours. When Misty and Quinn figured the money from his new promotion would provide enough for them to live on, they'd made a few miscalculations.
Quinn was making somewhere in the 30s, and they were spending $1,000 more a month than what they had coming in.
They had a fairly substantial amount of debt. They had a house that was probably a little bit out of their range. They had several credit card bills.
Although as young families go, Misty and Quinn weren't all that out of the ordinary, according to his sister.
We all live above our means, every one of us. If you have a credit card, you're living above your means, you know. If you have a house and the bank owns it, then you're at least $100,000 in debt.
Misty and Quinn didn't stop there, however. Despite the debts, they kept spending.
They had just bought a new Ford Expedition, which of course was fairly expensive, and added to it. And they had a camper.
As the bills kept piling up throughout 2002, Quinn scrambled to make the payments, working extra shifts and extra jobs.
He was doing off-duty work, security jobs for different businesses in Concord.
Moonlighting jobs at local car dealerships, in the movie theater, and things like that.
And if he was off during the day, Quinn worked then, too.
Quinn worked with his brother, and they did yard work. They went around and mowed lawns.
Quinn worked all the time.
They just got in a financial hole, and it was hard for them to dig out.
Not that Misty ever let on about the family's financial trouble.
Misty has always been the strong kind. Whenever she's got problems, she's smiling. She tries to, play it cool. She tries to be upbeat.
All the while, Misty struggled to pay the bills and tried to save money where she could.
She tries to hold the family together. And Misty always shopped when everything was marked down. You can go down there and find any article with a tag on it, and it was marked from $20 to $5 to $3.
Misty also earned a little extra money doing odd jobs.
She did sell Avon, and she also cleaned some houses.
Not that it was easy with 3 kids at home.
She was dealing with 2 3-year-old twins and a 6-year-old.
But by 2003, with their oldest in elementary school, Misty was able to take a part-time job as custodian of the Witherspoons church.
She was paid $200 a month to clean the church.
She bought all the supplies that we needed. We never ran out of anything.
She also worked part-time as the church's treasurer.
Quinn was the elected treasurer of the church, but due to his schedule, she was given signer authority on the accounts for the church, and she was allowed to write checks, and she counted money and things of that nature.
In 2005, after 2 years of hard effort, it looked like all the extra income was helping, but still not enough to get ahead.
I don't think they were caught up on anything. They were living day to day.
They were just a normal middle-class family, just doing whatever they can to make ends meet.
At least they seemed normal. September 13th, 2005 was a busy day for Misty. The next morning, the family was supposed to leave for the only vacation their tight budget would allow, a camping trip with Quinn's parents.
Every vacation they went on, they were camping, and that's about the cheapest vacation you can take.
She was getting ready for the family trip and making some arrangements and getting stuff packed up.
Quinn, who'd worked late the night before, had walked their daughter to school that morning.
They lived just right down the block from South Elementary. He would put the twins in a wagon and pull them behind him when he walked his daughter to school.
He'd spend the rest of the morning making preparations for a little well-deserved time off.
So he stayed home in order to get packed up and get the camper ready for their trip.
Then, once Misty put the twins down for a nap after lunch, Quinn lay down on the couch to grab a little sleep before school let out.
He was planning on picking up his daughter when she finished school that afternoon.
But that afternoon, the little girl would wait for her daddy in vain. Coming up, Quinn's life is cut tragically short.
He had a single gunshot wound to the back of his head.
But is his death the accident that... Mooresville, North Carolina, September 13, 2005. It was a little after 2 o'clock that afternoon when 32-year-old Misty Witherspoon picked up the phone. Her daughter was at still squad cars converged on the home of their fellow officer.
Hi, I'm coming. Okay, do you want to hang up and meet him at the door? Yes. Okay, I'll let you go. All right, bye.
As quick as the response was, the help arrived much too late.
By the time the police got there and the ambulances got there, her husband Quinn was already dead.
The shot had killed Quinn almost instantly.
He had a single gunshot wound to the back of his head right here.
With Quinn dead, there was only one thing for the officer at the scene to do.
He had everybody back out, secured the scene.
By the time detectives arrived, minutes after the 911 call, Misty was waiting outside the house with her elderly in-laws, who lived next door.
They were the first to be there when she shot their son. They were the first to know, they were the first to arrive, they were first to see.
Quinn's parents were devastated by their son's death.
Mama, she was pretty bad. I was worried about her. Dad was bad. I tried to console them. Misty was sitting there hanging her head, crying profusely.
The police officers at the scene were shaken too. Quinn may have worked in the neighboring community of Concord, but he was well known to many members of the Mooresville force. One officer pulled Detective Gerald Childress aside as he arrived on the scene.
He approached me in the yard and told me that Quinn had been shot in the head. And he kind of began to cry a little bit and told me just to do a good job, do the best job I could.
Inside, Childress and Detective Todd Markham found Quinn's body sprawled on the couch.
And he was laying with his head towards the left, putting the bullet wound, right back here.
It appeared that he had been asleep when the shot was fired.
There was a pillow in between his face and his hands, but it was sort of like this on the couch.
On the floor nearby was a .40 caliber Beretta, Quinn's service sidearm. How the gun had gotten there wasn't clear. Based on what police found elsewhere in the house, it was normally kept high on a shelf in a bathroom down the hall.
There was a gun belt, a duty belt, laying in the floor of the bathroom, right beside a basket that had some other police items in it. I believe he had his police radio, some belt keepers, maybe some keys and some other things.
There was one item the detectives couldn't find, however, the shell casing from the fatal shot.
The shell casing should have been to the right of the couch. We searched that entire area, under the couch, around the couch. We looked everywhere.
But they didn't find it until the medical examiner loaded Quinn's body onto a gurney well over an hour later.
When we rolled his body off of the couch, stuck to his right arm was the shell casing. And the medical examiner was the one that actually saw the location and saw it hit the floor.
The mystery solved. The cops added the casing to the evidence. Then investigators stepped outside to interview Misty.
I stepped out, introduced myself to her, asked her if she'd come back with me to the police department.
Quinn's family watched the children while Misty accompanied Detective Markham to the Mooresville police station. In the interrogation room, the distraught widow explained how the shooting had occurred.
She had slipped on a book while bringing her husband his gun and tripped and fell into him, and the gun went off and it shot him in the head.
Misty always admitted that she killed him, but she said it was an accident and that she did not intend to kill him.
The newly widowed mother of 3 was clearly distraught over what she had done.
She was upset. She was crying. I attributed it to her being in shock.
Once she had finished her statement, the police sent Misty home to be with her children.
They just said, okay, well, this must be the way it happened.
Several of the officers here knew her, knew him, and wanted to believe it was just an accident.
In fact, the Mooresville police were so convinced that the shooting was an accident that they released the crime scene later that night.
They took down the little yellow crime scene tape, that they have around, said they had everything out, they had seized everything and took photos and everything, and that we could go about our business.
But the next morning, when detectives gathered in the squad room to discuss the case, doubts started surfacing about Misty's story.
Little things were bugging us, gnawing at us.
First, there was the shell casing that somehow ended up underneath Quinn's body.
Looking at his body position, that kind of puzzled us.
In going through the photographs, it became obvious that his head had been moved after he had been shot.
Then there was Misty's claim that the gun had accidentally gone off when she slipped.
It's got a safety on the slide. This safety disengages the trigger assembly, so you can pull the trigger all day long, the gun won't go off.
And the officers who knew Quinn seriously doubted he would leave his gun lying around with the safety off.
He was a very good officer, very officer safety conscious.
In fact, Quinn was so safety conscious that he most likely would have unloaded the gun before storing it, even on a high shelf.
I do not think he would leave a weapon, even on safe, in an area where his 7-year-old daughter could have gotten it.
Finally, there was Misty's claim that she had not only stumbled, but that she'd had the additional misfortune to fire a fatal shot.
It hit him just above and behind the ear.
It was a well-placed shot. I mean, if a gun goes off accidentally, the chance of hitting somebody with the gun is 1 chance in 100. And then the chances of hitting him in a place that's going to kill him, if it's an accidental shot, again, is maybe 1 chance in 100. So again, you're talking about what are the odds?
Hoping for some answers, the police went to the Witherspoon house later that afternoon with a proposition.
If she would do a videotaped reenactment, that way maybe she could explain some of these questions that we had.
Misty agreed to help. On the videotape, she explained the awful accident had all started with the camping trip the family had scheduled for the following morning.
Her husband was sleeping on the couch. The kids were taking a nap. She was packing up and getting ready.
Misty said that one of the items she wanted to pack was a tube of lotion that she kept on the bathroom shelf.
Her husband kept his whole gun belt in the cabinet on the same shelf.
I reached in back here to see if I was trying to find some lotion in this thing. I hit the gun belt.
According to her, the gun slipped off the shelf, fell and hit the ground.
Misty's story explained why the police had found Quinn's gun belt lying on the bathroom floor. It also explained why Misty had taken the gun to her husband.
She was afraid that, maybe something was broken on it.
After all, a properly functioning firearm could be a matter of life and death for a law enforcement officer like Quinn.
She was taking it to her husband to have him check it out to make sure that, the gun was okay.
But as she crossed the living room to where her husband slept, Misty said things had gone horribly wrong.
One of her children's coloring books was on the ground, and she stepped on it and slipped.
My footing went out. I did this number. I can't remember when I get to that right here, I heard it go off.
That's what Misty claimed had happened at least. But was it true?
Well, as soon as I heard that story, I'm like, no, there's no way that it happened like that.
Accidentally knocking the gun off the shelf, slipping on the book, and inadvertently pulling the trigger. The more the unfortunate coincidences piled up, the less the police believed her.
And it's like 1 chance in 10,000 that all of those events coming together.
And the final occurrence, accidentally pulling the trigger as she fell? On the video, Misty had a hard time even duplicating it.
She had told me that she held the gun by the handle and that her finger was never on the trigger.
So as she fell into the couch, she had to shake the gun to get her finger into the trigger.
Based on Misty's own attempt at an explanation, the police were now convinced that Quinn's death wasn't an accident. Coming up, the police uncover a possible motive for Quinn's death.
She would have received close to $300,000.
But does that mean it's murder?
Suicide is something that the community does.
By the evening of September 14, 2005, a little more than 24 hours since claiming she had accidentally shot her sleeping husband, the Mooresville, North Carolina police were starting to suspect that Misty Witherspoon had committed murder.
Well, there were things from the very beginning of the investigation that bothered us.
Most of all, the police doubted Misty's claim that the shooting had been accidental, that she had slipped while carrying her husband's gun.
Certainly, we slip on things all the time, so was it possible? Yes, but just other things that we were looking at just really...
The investigators had decided not to confront her about the inconsistencies in her story.
You don't want to offend. You don't want to badger somebody that legitimately has lost their husband in a terrible accident.
Instead, the investigators began quietly questioning friends and neighbors, asking if Misty had any motive to kill Quinn.
There's no obvious signs of any problems. There was no accusations of domestic abuse or infidelities or any of that.
The family finances, however, were a different matter.
What came out was that Misty was overspending by quite a bit what her family income was.
She had an incredible spending habit.
Misty liked to shop. She liked to dress well. She liked Avon, and she spent money on those things, money that they didn't have. And some people around town were saying that Misty was actually a shopaholic.
Where did the money come from? When police asked one of Misty's friends, she thought she had a good idea.
She didn't know for sure, but she had suspicions that Misty was stealing from the church.
In 2003, Misty had started working part-time as the treasurer at Whitman Park Baptist, the Witherspoons' family church. Was her friend right? Had Misty taken advantage of the position to feed her spending habit? A meeting with her minister confirmed it.
She had been writing checks to pay her personal family bills off of the church's checking account.
For more than a year, Misty had used church funds to cover family expenses. But according to what the pastor told the police, she'd been caught almost a year before Quinn was killed, in September of 2004.
The pastor, I believe, discovered some discrepancies and went to Quinn.
The church and the family had settled the matter without going to the authorities.
Arrangements were made for Quinn to cash out part of his retirement plan to pay back the church, and for Quinn's father to make restitution.
Misty told me that when her and Quinn was talking after the church situation, he said, none of this is important to me. What's important is me and you. We can get rid of everything. We can let everything go back. We can do whatever.
Quinn and Misty's creditors weren't quite as forgiving, however. Looking into the family's finances, the investigators discovered that minus the money she had been skimming off the church, Misty and Quinn were all but drowning in debt.
The house payment, the car payments, camper payments, utilities, all of which was not being made. It was a pretty grim situation.
Their financial situation was probably teetering on the edge of maybe a bankruptcy.
Then, to round out the family's financial picture, investigators dug into Quinn's insurance coverage.
He had a life insurance policy through the city of Concord.
We figured that she would have received close to $300,000.
Combined with the couple's crushing debt, was the insurance money a motive for murder?
That would have done a lot for her to get her out of the debt that she was in.
On October 5th, the investigators brought Misty in for a taped statement. Once again, she appeared more than willing to cooperate.
I just kind of wanted to come try to get everything straight.
She's very despondent, which is, at that point, she's contemplating, spilling it.
Misty's story would change, but she wouldn't confess to murder. Instead, she said that Quinn's death was the result of a suicide attempt. A failed suicide attempt.
I want to say, I did not intentionally murder my husband. I did not. That whole day was about killing me.
According to Misty, she'd spent the whole day stewing over their desperate financial straits.
And I'm thinking about, I'm letting us go on this camping trip that we can't afford. When he gets back, he's going to be so mad. But to everybody else, I just smile. I'd be happy.
She sought to please everyone and hid a lot of her emotions behind that facade of the nice little soccer mom type.
All this time, all this morning, I've been wondering what we're going to do about all this stuff.
But then Misty said she had suddenly seen a way out.
Things did happen that I told you. It all did start when I went in the bathroom to look for the lotion for my feet. I did knock his gun in the floor. I did pick it up.
That was her answer. It was like she picked up the gun and that was her answer. She was going to commit suicide.
I went outside. I sat in our swing.
Did you still have the gun with you?
I still did. I was gonna actually go out there in Quinn's little room where nobody could hear me, and I was gonna be it. I was gonna be it.
But Misty said she couldn't do it. Instead, she claimed that she had gone back inside to where her husband slept.
She was standing there, and I believe she was begging for him to wake up.
I looked up and I was like, God, what am I going to do? What do I do? What do I do? In between having this gun pointed at my head. How do you get to that point?
According to Misty, it was while she was praying, holding the gun and hoping for a sign, that something unexpected had happened. Something that Misty claimed had inadvertently led her suicide attempt to end in Quinn's death.
My two cats chase each other all the time. About that time, they came running across the top of the couch and across my hands. That's when the gun went off.
According to Misty, accidentally shooting Quinn wasn't quite the end of her suicide attempt, however. As soon as she'd realized the horrible thing she had just done, Misty said she had put the gun back to her head. But she claimed that her toddler twins, asleep in the next room, had miraculously stopped her from following through.
I heard one of them move, stir in the monitor. And something just clicked in me right there.
She couldn't kill herself. Not now.
How are they gonna get through burying her daddy without their mama?
So Misty said she had put down the gun, picked up the phone, and begun to cover up what had just happened.
I just went into this panic freak mode.
What am I gonna do?
Yeah. How can I tell people that I was gonna kill myself?
Suicide is something that the community doesn't embrace.
Taken at face value, Misty's story appeared to explain how Quinn had died, dealt with the debt motive, and addressed the doubts about Misty's earlier claim that she had slipped on a book. But did that mean the investigators believed it? For Mooresville Police Chief John Crone, watching the interrogation from the next room, Misty's new story was almost as good as a confession.
I'm saying, okay, we got her. Nobody's going to believe that cat story any more than the slippery book story.
At the end of the interrogation, Mooresville police arrested Misty on charges of first-degree murder.
They decided, based on the crime scene facts, that Misty was not telling the truth, that she did intend to kill him, that she deliberately walked up behind him and shot him.
Coming up, Misty stands trial.
This was almost an execution-style murder.
But Quinn's family stands behind her. In April of 2007, Misty Witherspoon not only stood accused of killing her husband Quinn, the mother of three also faced fraud charges stemming from her misuse of church funds.
She had embezzled a tremendous amount of money from Whitman Park Baptist Church, tens of thousands of dollars.
The church did not press charges, but the state did.
Misty had used the money, according to the indictment, to pay bills and provide for her three children.
She didn't go to Vegas, she didn't have a gambling habit, but she shopped a lot, and some people have told us that she went shopping every day, and she just could not control her spending.
On April 30th, she pled guilty to 39 separate fraud counts. But on June 28, 2007, the first day of her murder trial, the church she'd stolen from stood by her.
This was a community that was from Whitman Park Baptist Church, who have grown up really tight.
However, there was one group of people who didn't believe Quinn's death was accidental. His co-workers in law enforcement.
Those guys all believe what the Mooresville police officers are saying, which is that she did it on purpose, and she killed one of our own.
There were a large number of Concord police officers who came on days off and on their own time to sit in the courtroom and make sure someone was there for him.
Despite the strong showing by Quinn's fellow officers, prosecutor Alan Martin knew the family's support posed a serious obstacle.
That was our biggest concern, convincing the jury of, well, if the victim's mom and dad don't believe she killed him, why should I as a juror believe that she killed him on purpose?
The DA had a ready answer. According to his opening statement to the jury, Quinn died due to the family's desperate financial straits.
Mortgage payments were some 5 months in arrears. They were facing foreclosure.
Those pressures led her to making a decision that nobody in the community who knew her would have expected her to make.
As proof, prosecutors presented box upon box of unpaid and often unopened bills seized from Quinn and Misty's house after her arrest.
We executed a search warrant on the home looking for financial documents.
The tipping point, according to the prosecution, was a final notice from the power company that arrived in the mail on the morning of Quinn's death.
If they did not pay their power bill, they would have their electricity cut off.
Quinn knew. Misty tried to take care of it.
While her husband slept that afternoon, Misty had met a frantic phone call.
We have the phone records time-stamped that she made that phone call to a customer service representative at Duke Power.
Over the phone, she'd made a last-minute plea to contain the damage and keep the power on. She failed.
She was told, your power will be cut off tomorrow unless you pay the bill in full today, in cash.
The only way that she would have been able to pay that money was to use the money that they were going to use on their camping trip, which meant she was going to have to tell Quinn.
But telling Quinn, according to the prosecution's theory, was the last thing Misty had wanted to do.
We believe that there, at some point, may have been an ultimatum. I've got you out of this mess with the church. Don't let it happen again.
I think he told her that if she ever did this again, he was going to take the kids and boot her out.
Faced with waking Quinn, the prosecution claimed that Misty had made a desperate decision. One that would not only keep her husband from finding out how dire the family's financial problems were, it would also solve them.
They brought out $300,000 and some odd dollars in life insurance that was in various benefits that she would receive as a possible motive.
According to the prosecutors, while the twins napped in the next room, Misty shot her sleeping husband in the head.
This was almost an execution-style murder.
Then, as Quinn bled to death, Misty had dialed 911 and started covering her tracks. As proof, they played the 911 call for the jury.
I was bringing my husband his gun and I tripped and fell with it and shot.
During her 911 call, she immediately began explaining what happened instead of saying, help, call an ambulance, my husband's hurt.
And you're sitting there going, okay, when are you going to tell us that your husband's laying on the couch with a hole in his head?
When the defense started presenting its case on June 10th, Misty's lawyers didn't argue with many of the prosecution's points. They even agreed that the family's desperate finances led directly to Quinn's death. However, they stuck to the story that Misty had first told the detectives almost 2 years earlier.
The defense at trial said that Misty Witherspoon was suicidal and that she had been contemplating her own death after she received this call from the creditor.
They contended she intended to kill herself, and she had said in statements that she had at points had the gun to her head.
But as she stood over her sleeping husband, holding the gun and praying for a sign of what to do, the defense claimed that something had happened. Something that incredibly had also happened on the reenactment video she'd made for police.
Apparently, either one or more of the couple's cats jumped onto the sofa.
That startled her, and she dropped the gun. And when she did, it went on her knee, and the gun went off and shot him in the back of the head.
That not only made Quinn's death an accident, the defense claimed it explained why she initially lied to the police about slipping on a book.
She didn't want people to know that she had these dark, depressing thoughts and that she had contemplated taking her own life.
On July 12th, the defense rested without calling Misty to the stand.
There's always a risk if you're a defendant in testifying. You're going to be there on the hot seat and there's no time to think about your answers.
As the case went to the jury, the only question was, would the jurors believe Misty's new version of what happened that September afternoon? Or would they send the single mother of 3 small children to prison?
Misty Witherspoon is a married police officer's wife, mother of 3, church-going woman. You just don't know if a jury's going to be able to convict her of any crime, no matter what the evidence says.
Coming up, the jury reaches its verdict.
There was a lot of gasps.
But which side would be disappointed? Misty's family or Quinn's co-workers?
There was not going to be much middle ground for the jury. They were either going to
On July 16, 2007, the jury announced it had reached a verdict in the murder trial of Misty Witherspoon. The 34-year-old was charged with killing her husband Quinn, a Concord, North Carolina police officer. Misty claimed that Quinn's death was accidental, but the state contended that it was deliberate.
It was a case where there was not going to be much middle ground for the jury. They were either going to believe her or they weren't.
Out in the courtroom, opinions were divided. On one side sat Quinn's co-workers looking for justice.
There were rows and rows of Concord police officers in court every single day to show their support of Quinn Witherspoon.
On the other side were not just Misty's family, but the Witherspoons as well.
They were all supporting Misty. They had one common goal, was for Misty to get off and to get past this and to go home to her children and her family.
I have never even heard of a case where the family of the victim is so supportive of the defendant.
And when the foreperson rose to read the verdict, the question remained. Had the family's staunch support made a difference? The jury found Misty Witherspoon guilty of first-degree murder.
People that support.
Quinn's fellow officers were satisfied with the verdict.
They wanted to see her pay because they believed from the get-go that she did it on purpose.
That we had done our job, but I don't think anybody was really happy about the circumstances. And there's no glory in taking a mother away from her children.
That afternoon, Misty was sentenced to life without parole.
Was justice served for her family? I'm sure they don't feel it was.
Indeed, the family continues to stand by Misty, and there's no way a jury's verdict will change that.
Misty loves this family. She loves Mom and Dad. She'd have never, ever took their baby away from them.
It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, perhaps it helps them to deal with the pain of losing their son. That the only way that they can deal with it is to believe that it was an accident and to believe that it was God's will